Welcome back to Australian Musician.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
James, going way back, what were the albums in the record collection that helped you form the musician that you are today?
Mostly a lot of hard rock and blues, I guess, because my dad is just a huge music lover. So there was as much kind of like early Rolling Stones and earlier like Muddy Waters, and, Robert Johnson, like early blues stuff. But then as soon as the hard rock, blues, which became rock, which became hard rock, so Deep Purple, and then as it got heavier and heavier, like Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, and kind of just kept that evolution of those bands, like Black Sabbath, then over a period of time, turned into Ozzy Osbourne, and lots of Kiss. Kiss are actually one of my absolute favourite bands, which, it's one of those things that doesn't have anything to do with my playing necessarily, but just as a love of music, that sort of stuff. So definitely the early sort of hard rock stuff.
And who were the guitarists that you tried to emulate their licks?
Probably more the blues guys early on. Really, a lot of the players like Ace Frehley, it's just the blues, just playing blues anyway, isn't it? But really, when I started getting into it, Stevie Ray Vaughan definitely was probably one of the biggest inspirations. Where you're just trying to nail any of that stuff, trying to make it sound anything like that. Roy Buchanan, Rory Gallagher, and then later on it changed when I started getting into the more shreddy stuff, and then that becomes more of a technical, like going to school kind of thing. But earlier on, it was definitely more of the blues guys, just trying to get some of that phrasing and that classy sound.
And what was your first real electric guitar?
My first real electric guitar was a white Strat copy. Pretty similar to the one I've got there, actually. Yeah, I'd probably been playing nylon string for about 3 years leading up to that. And I remember one Christmas, the cardboard box thing, and it was the greatest thing ever. And white Strat still just looks, in any form, looks incredible. So yeah, that was a bit of a turning point.
First professional gig, first gig you got some money for?
That is a good question. Probably way back, like the Tooradin pub. You know where Tooradin is? Mm-hmm. Yeah, good little fishing area. I remember playing out there when I was about 16 or 17. I think first band, joined with some older guys, and pretty sure we might have got paid in beer. I'm not sure about what the actual currency was, but you definitely got something for that gig.
Fairly early on in your career, you went on tour with Men at Work. How did that come about, and what was the experience like?
That came about probably because I'd been knocking around with Simon Hosford for a while. We become mates at some point. I saw him playing at a gig and just went up to him and said, "Hey man, I think we kind of do the same sort of stuff. We seem to like the same stuff. Why don't we get together and have a bit of a play?" And then we just started having a ball learning all this crazy guitar music and kicking a footy and drinking coffee. And he had been playing with Men at Work around that time as well. And so I think he put my name forward, and I remember Greg came out and saw me play just at a cover gig, back when cover gigs were like 400 people in a room going nuts. And Greg Ham came up and said, just had a look and went, "Great, how would you like to do this?" So and that'll always be one of the most amazing things in my life ever, especially the South American part of the trip, because it almost still seems like a fantasy. Like that's not how it really happened, was it? Because it was just a huge event, stadiums filled with people going wild as if you're Bon Jovi just released Slippy Red and Wet. It's like that. So yeah, that was an extraordinary couple of tours.
You've worked with an amazing array of Australian artists, Kate Sobrano, John Stevens, Vanessa Amorosi, heaps of artists. What are the main factors which help a guitarist to become a session guy?
Look, I think it's the common things are not burning bridges, or more importantly, actually just making a good impression. Doing a great job, and being easy to get along with, and do whatever is asked of you. And make those connections, which inherently you do. If you do the right thing, you're going to kind of make those, take those steps and meet people and sort of move up as far as where people are in the scheme of things, what they're able to offer, what opportunities come up. But I think that's the main thing, is you just got to do a really good job, and you just got to keep finding opportunities and doing at least as good a job or a better job of just working at it like that. And if you do that, you just kind of get on people's radar, because the bigger gigs or more important gigs, they obviously only want there to be a short list of people to do those kind of things, And if you do something really well, and you kind of get in, on that person's little list, it's like, great, this guy's always great, just book him. We don't have to. Then they know they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to think, is he's, what did he do last time? Did he do a good job? They just know if you book this guy at any point, it's going to be fine.
Is it important to have an eclectic taste in music?
You've got, depending on how wide of a range of stuff you want to be able to do. Yeah, you need to be fairly flexible, without kind of implying that you can do absolutely everything. Like if I got offered a gig doing, say, a country band, and I had to listen to it, was like really authentic, amazing country stuff, I'd probably go, unless you really want me to have a crack at it, I'd probably say I could do it, but there's better guys. Likewise, if somebody says jazz, I just close the door. See you later. There's some things I'm not going to even pretend to, have a go at doing some stuff that I absolutely don't really have enough, enough skill in that area. But for the rest of it, which is 99% of everything you do falls not into those categories, it falls into this other area. You got to be, flexible, and certainly have covered enough things so that you can walk in and do whatever is needed.
In 2005, you released a solo album called Blown. What was
2005.
What was the experience like, and will we see another solo album?
Yes. It was great. That was back when, probably when I had a bit more time. But most guitar players, I'm always, writing guitar riffs and bits and pieces. And prior to that, I'd written loads of instrumental stuff, just because that's just what you do. You create and you put things together for yourself. So that was just kind of really going, well, I've got all these songs, let's just put them into a format and put it out there. And that was actually a lot of fun, and that did pretty well, actually. It was pretty cool. And then the second one I did, which was probably 10 years later, as you know, the way the industry has changed, certainly in the last 10 years, and even before that, it's almost like it's just started again it's like ground zero, new industry altogether. So when I put out my second album was probably just towards the end of the idea of just putting out music, put out CDs, do things, and be able to sell some, and it's a different kind of interest in music in that way. So I think I just got in with the second one. Another one, maybe someday. At the moment, I'm plowing all my energy and time into other things.
As well as being a performing musician, you're also a clinician. You do demos for brands such as Roland and Fender. How did you get into that, and what do you get out of it?
I got into that really early. I think, again, that whole thing of just making a good impression on people and making the right connections. I think I might have even stepped into that by way of my local music store, which is Cranbourne Music, which is not Cranbourne Music anymore. They're called Coleman's Music now, after 20 plus years. But they're actually just down in Limbrook now. But when they were in Cranbourne, they were the biggest store, have been, everyone kind of knew Cranbourne music. And so I got to know the Coleman family there early on, and I was teaching there. And I think it would have just been one of those things. I think we're, a rep for a company was in there talking to Michael, and something came up about, needing a guitar player, or maybe we could do a clinic. And then so they said, would you be interested in doing this? And it only takes that one step. If that was someone from Roland or Fender, and a lot of these brands communicate anyway. As soon as you do something like that, you get an opportunity, and if you make the most of that, then they're going to ask you to do something else, because that's the nature of these things. So it was just that I started doing a few things for them, and probably even got a bit further with that at expos, kind of like the Melbourne Guitar Show, but there used to be a lot more of those things, right? So there'd be just big music expos with all the brands there. So then you get to go around and meet other people, different companies, different brands. And yeah, I think it just kind of branched out from there. Even with Roland, I've been doing stuff for them for 20 years. Yeah.
That's also developed into a YouTube channel where you've got 17,000 followers.
But who's counting? Yeah.
Do you enjoy doing those demos?
Not really. No, it's just YouTube is. That's tough. I think it's one of those things that you really have to at some point, and probably for me it would have been like 10 years ago. If you decide that's what you're going to do, and you can see it developing as mine did, especially early on, then you just have to go at that and make it your thing, and that has to become your job, or part of, like, full time. So it's not a thing where you can kind of fit it in around other stuff and realize, I haven't put anything on there for 2 months, and come back and do something, and then do some other random thing. Then it just doesn't work anymore. So it's awesome, but it's a real difficult one. I mean, the demos in general, I enjoy making videos. But I find more now for other platforms, Instagram is kind of a more, it's more accessible in a way. You don't sort of have to bang your head about, how do I get anyone to have a look at this? Whereas YouTube, there's a lot of people trying to get a piece of that pie.
Melbourne Guitar Show, you've been there right from the start.
Yeah.
When you think back at the Melbourne Guitar Show, what are your memories?
Well, just very, very fond memories from the beginning. Especially, I think, just seeing the amount of people that showed up, from the very beginning was just like, wow, okay, this is, obviously these people have all been waiting for something just like we have. And it was, and it has been every year, amazing to know people are just, they can't wait to come out and see gear and hear guitar and watch concerts, and you see these people all coming in, all ages, and just with the biggest smiles on their faces. Like, just same for me every time, like going into a good guitar shop or any guitar thing, you go in, it's like, wow. It doesn't matter how many times you've seen it, just seeing and hearing guitars en masse, always great. And that was the first, one of the only Racer X shows. So very special memories because of that as well.
Yeah. More recently, you've been playing with the Bad Loves and Ross Wilson. We saw you up at Blues Fest with Ross Wilson.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Your first Blues
My
Fest?
first Blues Fest? Yeah, it was amazing. I think I feel like we were pretty lucky in a way doing the opening night. And there'd been obviously build up because of the fact that a couple of years or whatever they've tried to get this on, and finally it happened. And so yeah, when we played, it wasn't like there's people scattered around all the place. It was like a main thing, and also because it was the 50th anniversary version of the show, 50th anniversary of Eagle Rock. So all of that together and being there for the first time was amazing. Crowd was absolutely killer. It's one of the best crowds we've played.
The Bad Loves is a band they've been playing with for quite some time now.
Yep.
and King Canyon, your own band, is usually the support act.
Yeah.
How did that all come together, all the Bad Loves connection first?
How did that begin? That is a good question. See, if Kath was here, she'd be like, bam. So Kath Hutchison manages the Bad Loves. And I honestly can't remember how did it initiate. But I started doing some stuff with Michael, first of all, just some acoustic, just doing some video stuff we started doing here, just some kind of concepts of just to do something interesting, you know, break up what he'd been doing before and just do some things, play some songs a bit differently and have some fun, actually, is what it was. So he was coming over here every few weeks and we were just doing some stuff, mostly just kind of building up a rapport, because it's definitely that kind of a band. And the Ross Wilson thing, it's all very much people that enjoy spending time together, you know. So Michael and I just kind of built this great relationship, and then at that time it wasn't a thing where I was in the Bad Loves. They'd been playing as a 4-piece for quite a while, so it was you know, a bit further down the line that I think I just sort of stepped in to do a few gigs. Maybe he was just kind of testing the water to see if it was going to be a good vibe after not having a guitar player in there for a while. And then just over time, it became a thing that, like, great, I'm be happy to play guitar for the Bad Loves.
And King Canyon, which is your own project with Jimmy Couples.
Yep.
How did that begin?
So that began at the start of the, I don't want to say pandemic, but there you go, I said that horrible word. When, like many artists, I just like, well, what are we going to do? Especially when it was so apparent at the start that it's like, no, everything is over for an indefinite period. So somehow at the start there, I sort of did see the positive of, well, now I've got all this time where there's no pressure. There's no, guy on your shoulder saying, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to finish this other thing and you've got to get ready for this other thing. It's just like, oh, well, I can do anything I want. So I hadn't done an original project for a long time and probably hadn't done something specifically that I wanted to do for, since I was a teenager almost. So yeah, I thought, well, there's a certain style I have in my head that I've been writing stuff for, which is kind of riffy, guitar, rock, blues sort of stuff at the start anyway. So yeah, I just sort of put the word out to find a singer, and little Jimmy popped up. And we just, from absolutely nothing, was really just like, well, listen, man, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Do you want to try it out? I'll send you some music and you have a listen and see what happens. And it was just this instant, chemistry, because he just sent back this song straight up, and I couldn't believe it. He just was just singing over the top of the thing, and it was like, this is unbelievable. And I could say, why didn't I do this sooner? But because there was no COVID, there was work and there was life. So yeah, it's worked out really well.
So what's the plan now for King Canyon?
Plan is, we have so many songs. I mean, we forget songs that we've written, literally, and we go through the pad and go, oh, what about that? Or I'll go through the files and go play stuff and go, oh, what about that tune? That's right. It's like, we have so many songs that we think are really good. So it's just taking them from we've written them to into the band, working on them, producing them, recording them, and releasing them. And from here to there is, sometimes it's not too hard, but other times it's not a simple process, because unfortunately King Canyon is not the only thing that I have to do. So, but that's the main thing, is we just want to keep putting music out, get some more videos out, and play shows.
A couple of weeks ago, you were on stage at Rod Laver Arena with Robbie Williams.
So I was.
How did that happen?
So that was, almost going full circle with what you asked at the start, as far as, how do you get in there? How do you kind of break down doors as far as connections and getting more gigs? So that came via Chong Lim, who is Farnham's MD and keyboard player, has been for a long time, and it's kind of one of the main guys that does a lot of the TV stuff that you see. He worked on Dancing with the Stars for a long time. So he's one of those guys that people like Robbie Williams management or production or whatever call in another country to go, we need a band, can you help us out? And luckily I happen to be in that little list, as I said, of people that somebody might call for certain jobs with almost a guarantee. It's kind of what they need to know, is like, someone like that needs to know if he books someone that it's kind of guaranteed to do the job. Because if someone does a bad job, it's, the Robbie Williams management, they're not going to be going, oh, that James Ryan guy wasn't a very good guitar player. They're going to go, that Chong Lim that we got to book this band didn't do right by us, So you have to be able to do the job. So yeah, luckily I was on that little short list of crew alongside Brett Garced, which is always an honour. Craig Newman on bass, and we had Robbie's drummer and keyboard player, guitar player.
And essentially it was for the movie that they're making?
Yeah. It was kind of crazy because we only found out, I got the call like 3 weeks before the gig. So even for just gigs locally, if you kind of, 3 weeks is sort of sometimes cutting it fine. So to get a call from Chong to say, do you want to play with Robbie Williams in 3 weeks? It was right off the cuff. It was like, hey, sure, but this is probably not how things normally go, is it? So, and that's because, it was all based around the movie. He was out here for, I think, like a week before that, filming. And during, right up to and even within the gigs themselves, they were filming. And not just filming the gig, there were sections where we played a segment of the show, and then we go off, and then they set up the stage and do some filming of some other component that's going to go in the movie. The crowd didn't even know. So it was all pretty crazy. But I'm glad he was out here for that, because it was an amazing experience.
Did you have any interaction at all with Robbie?
Yeah. Seriously, I know people say this, but he was just like a fun, like really funny, regular guy. He'd sit down and we're just having something to eat, dinner or whatever, and he'd just sit down there and he's just eating and talking. And if you didn't know who that was as a celebrity and his status and stuff, you wouldn't think twice about it. He was just treated us great and just very regular. But yeah, he was a funny guy and just awesome on stage. That's his thing. He really does entertain from the very beginning. He entertains us too. For a lot of the show, just watching him and the way that he is involved with the crowd, like the whole time. It was a great lesson in like that's why they're making a movie about him. You asked me this before too, and often get asked about what's your favourite this, what's your favourite that. I wish I had just a favourite or two. Sometimes I do for a little while, but then something else catches my attention, or I'd sort of have a different gig and I think, that guitar's going to be cool for that, and then that one, becomes a bit of a favourite. It is a pain because it's a lot of restringing, and but this has to be one of my favourites. It's a 74 Strat. It's the only vintage guitar I've ever had. I'd love to get something earlier, but King Canyon's going to have to take off a bit more before I can do that. But yeah, bought this from Sunset Music. That's either Brisbane or Sydney. I feel like it's Brisbane. And yeah, it was just killer. That's got to be my favourite colour, vintage white. They do call it, because it was Olympic white, but that's what they go over time. Such is the beauty of the vintage instruments. So that is definitely, it's incredible sounding Strat. This is about on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is a new Fender called the Meteora. Brand new shape, new design. They sent it down for me to check out, and I thought this is really, really cool. I mean, it looks the part. Anything you want, something that's a bit showy, but it's just a clever guitar. It's got a little push-pull. Well, it's not a push-pull, but it's got a little switch there which splits the pickup, so you can get a whole lot of different sounds out of it, and it's really nice to play. It's a bit difficult to make it fit in a guitar stand, but you know, it's compromises. This one up here has been a favourite since I got it, which I've probably had it for 6 months. It's actually a Squire, but when I saw this, I just thought, well, that's really interesting. It's just got a combination of stuff that doesn't really exist on any regular models. So cabernet tally, but it's got Jazzmaster pickups, and it's really simple, but it plays great and it sounds fantastic. What else is favourites in here? This definitely is, actually. That's the Yamaha Revstar. Did some work for Yamaha a few years ago at the Melbourne Guitar Show, actually, and just did, leading up to that, they wanted me just to do a few demos, a few video things on a new range of guitars at the time. And then I got to keep one of them, and it became an instant favourite. Yeah, it's totally different than anything else I'd normally play, because they're the smaller kind of Gibson scale, and I'd never had P90s in a guitar, but this guitar is killer. And I've got to say, most of these guitars are not expensive. I'd say inexpensive, cheap, even, you know, because a lot of people have that perception that, oh, you know, guitar must be worth $3,000 or $4,000 or something for it to be any good. It's like, nah. And there's guitars you can pay that much money for that aren't necessarily that good either. So yeah, love a great guitar that you don't have to spend a fortune on. Look, they're probably my go-tos at the moment. I've got to show you this one as well though, because this is, again, look, how damn cool is that? So this, and also this Cabernet Italia, they're actually part of this new Squire series, but just caught my attention because they looked like something you want to be on stage with, but also just a combination of controls and layouts that I didn't have in any other guitar, you know. So sort of like, I'm not looking for another Strat, because it just means I'll, instead of playing that Strat or that Strat, I'll go for a different one. So for a guitar for me to kind of want to get into a guitar at this point, it just has to be something different, that it can't just be like a different color version of it. So that's why those things grab my attention. And look, I won't go through everything, but I've got to have at least one shreddy guitar, though it does need a little bit of work. I think I broke something on it, but this is the Schecter Sun Valley Super Shredder, and that is an absolutely killer. So when I just want to be able to rip and have the locking trem, that's the one. And also, it's still got the look. Still got it's like the classic Fender kind of surf green vibe. So I started playing Cole Clark guitars probably just midway through the COVID years. There'll be books, there'll be movies, the COVID years. And that was from a meeting. I'd known Cole, Miles, who's the CEO. I'd known him for quite a few years from other music industry relationships. And so he'd asked me a few times. He said, just come down to the factory and, you know, have a play, just have a look. So I eventually got down there, and I mean, it's pretty hard to say no. Actually, once you see them, you know, if you go to the factory, they are the most insane looking timbers. You just think that can't be real, that's not natural, but that's what they do. They source all natural timbers that just look stunning. So that's where it started, which was this redwood guy here, and it's just the most beautiful guitar, and the plugged in sound of these is the best. So then along came this model here, which has the humbucker built into it, which a lot of people see that and kind of go, well, that's pretty strange, but as soon as they hear it, they can't believe how it sounds, because it essentially just sounds like you're playing an electric guitar. It's got the two different outputs. So this opened up the possibilities of what we could do as a duo, especially instead of just having acoustic sound, because acoustic duo thing is fine, but kind of been beaten to death. So to be able to have this where I can plug it into all of my pedals, have all of those sounds happening, but at the same time have the beautiful acoustic sound with it, was absolutely incredible. So Cole Clark has definitely become my go-to brand. Also got me into playing a lap steel, which was just a random thing. They had it in there. They're like, oh, have you ever played one of these? I've played a bit of slide, but I hadn't played an actual lap steel. So I just plugged it in and had a little listen on open tuning. Wow, this is pretty cool. They said, take it away and have a play. And then, that was when there was lots of time on my hands. So I was just playing and practicing, and then it found its way into some songs. Now I do just want to mention also DAddario strings, because I've been using those for a while and they just are absolutely the best. I don't break string. I don't know how anyone breaks strings other than standing on the guitar, or I don't know how. They seem unbreakable. But the newest strings that they brought out for acoustics especially, I don't know how they last as long. There's been strings around for ages where they say, it's going to last a long time, the tone lasts. But it doesn't. I mean, it lasts a little while if you're lucky. Or normally do a gig or two and they're just dead. These strings, now they don't sound brand new, but they still sound really good. These have been on for more than 6 months. And every time I pick this guitar up, I'm expecting it to just have the real dead sound, where I'm like, no, I've got to change strings, because I'm not going to play a guitar like this and have bad sounding strings. But it still has this great tone. So why would I use any other strings? It would be, I wouldn't. So that, I just wanted to mention, because it actually, especially the acoustic strings, it blows me away, because it actually works way better than you expect, and things don't normally run that way. So yeah, DAddario strings, if anyone who hasn't tried them on the acoustics, it's a good vibe. You don't have to restring your guitar so often. Yeah.
And what's the grand plan for James Ryan?
Oh, that's pretty big, isn't it? Look, I don't want to go too grand, because I find if I come up with too much and do this and this and this, all it does is just bogs you down, and then you end up sitting around going, well, I haven't done that yet. I want to get my shower fixed still, gardening, lawn mowing. Honestly, at the moment, it's just the things that are right in front of me. So this month has been incredibly busy, and the next week is pretty crazy. So it's just doing the gigs that I'm doing right now really well, making sure that the gear I'm using is kind of working and what I want to be working with. And then most of the rest of the time is King Canyon stuff. It's just, songs that need to get finished. And in between that, just working with Jimmy, getting back over songwriting. And that's already more than I can fit in.
James Ryan, thanks for your time.
Thank you.